football heads back into the win column against Kansas State. Texas volleyball remains at the top of their game, and men's basketball kicks off their season with 2 wins. All this and more coming up on College Press Box. Good evening and welcome into College Press Box. I'm Jocelyn Maldonado, joined alongside Thomas Fitch. We have a packed show for you tonight, so let's get started.
That's right, Jocelyn. Texas came into Saturday's game against Kansas State unranked for the first time this season. Meanwhile, the Horns were looking to extend their 2-game winning streak against the Wildcats to 3 as they faced off against Skylar Thompson and Chris Kleinman. Let's head down to DKR for the highlights. The Texas Longhorns fired up for the game. However, it would be Kansas State who would get off to the fast start. Skylar Thompson going to find Malik Knowles, and Brandon Jones, he needs to go to the sidelines, get his ankles checked, as Knowles is going to take this one 70 yards to the house. Kansas State gets on the board early. Ensuing possession for the Wildcats, Thompson going to find Wyking Gill. Little bobble in the end zone, but he maintains possession, and the Wildcats lead by 14. So while Texas Twitter is freaking out, the Longhorns football team staying calm. Ellinger going to find Devin Duvernay for a 32-yard reception, and then little flea flicker action. Colin Johnson wide open in the end zone, his first touchdown since Louisiana Tech. Horns back in this game. To the second half, where Keontae Ingram turning on the burners, all the way dive into the end zone for the score. Look at Fozzie, the former Texas Longhorn, loving Ingram's hustle there on that play, and we're all tied up. Texas stops Kansas State, and then Brandon Jones had to make up for that missed tackle earlier. And watch this, 1 missed tackle, 2 missed tackle, 3. He's going to keep going down the sideline. Yet another missed tackle. And look at all the players. Roshan Johnson, Anthony Cook, Jalen Green, Colin Johnson, all the Longhorns blocking. And then Keontae Ingram, exclamation point on the drive. Little hesitation into the end zone. He would have 139 yards, 2 touchdowns in the game as the Horns extend their lead to 10. But Joshua Youngblood, ensuing kickoff. Dicker's going to give it his best effort, but he's not going to catch him. Nobody's going to catch Joshua Youngblood. And all of a sudden, we have a game once again. Who would think that Kansas State would be back in this game? Skylar Thompson looking in the end zone, but Deshaun Jameson going to get his hand in there and break up the pass. So, tie ball game. Longhorns trying to work another last-second drive. Ellinger going to find Devin Duvernay across the middle for the first down. And Cameron Dicker, once again, ice in his veins as the Longhorns get the win 27-24.
Our very own Henry Corwin was at DKR this past Saturday. Let's take a look at what he had to say about Texas' win over Kansas State.
Playing for Texas is different than playing for other schools. With high expectations of winning, the pressure can mount with each loss.
Coming off of their loss against TCU, the expectations for this Texas team going into their game against Kansas State were probably as low as they've been all season. Knowing that, Coach Herman spoke at his presser about how important it was for his team to stick together.
Teams that don't believe, teams that don't have confidence, teams that aren't together and play for each other, that doesn't happen. And so, obviously extremely proud of the win, but maybe, not maybe, but definitely more importantly, the things that this crew has been through these last few weeks to overcome what they overcame, it was special.
After the game, kicker Cameron Dicker spoke about the leadership inside the Texas locker room after last game's loss against TCU and how it sparked a win on Saturday.
After the game, I think Roach came up and talked to us, and he was like, hey, we all just need to come together, like love each other more, because we've been through a lot together, all the workouts we come in over the summer early in the morning, and so kind of coming together and coming out and winning this game was really big for us, and going down 14, nobody was like trash talking each other, and so it was really cool to see that our team kind of just could come together and come out with the win.
Texas's next matchup will be next week at Iowa State. From Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium, I'm Henry Corwin, TSTV Sports.
Now joined alongside me is football analyst Bailey Wald. Bailey, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Let's talk some I'm sorry, I'm good. Let's talk some football today. This weekend, they came out with a win after dropping in the top 25 rankings, and they're coming off a bye week. So what do you think? Was this a good Texas team or not?
I think this is a good Texas team, but not the best one that we've seen. Caden Stearns was back, which was really exciting, and he's already like the third best defender out of our team, even though he's only played 5 of our 9 games. We're ranked 22nd after not being ranked last week, and the team had 241 rushing yards compared to Kansas State's 51 rushing yards, which was pretty close to one of the Texas team's season highs, 3 sacks, a forced fumble, and recovery. So there were definitely a bunch of highlights, but like I said, not the same team that we saw at the beginning of the season when it was really their peak against LSU.
Yeah, you talk about these starters coming back from injury. Based on the game as a whole, was there a player or players that stood out to you in the game?
Sam Ehlinger definitely did his part. No crazy numbers, but 263 passing yards, 76% completion, 40 rushing yards. Very consistent, very reliable. He did have an interception, but it happens. Keontae Ingram hit 3 career highs, 139 rushing yards, along of 34 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then Colin Johnson is now back with a season high of 110 yards and 1 touchdown. And there's even players like Rashawn Johnson and Devin Duvernay who just all of them together are so consistent and work so well that overall the offense just played really well, and that would be like the main standout for me.
I know, like, a lot of Longhorn fans are excited about this win. They're hopeful that they have a chance for the Big 12 championship play. But what do you think? Do they really have a chance in this Big 12?
I do think that they are a contender, but obviously nothing is sure. An interesting thing is if you look at last season, we were 6-3 overall and 4-2 in Big 12 play, and that's the exact same place that we are now. And as we know, last season we went to the Big 12 championship, we won the Sugar Bowl. The only difference is that this season, OU and Baylor are so much more dominant than the 2 teams that were ahead of us last year. So Baylor will be playing OU this weekend and then Texas the weekend after that. And after those 2 games, we'll really get a chance to see how dominant Baylor is and if Texas has the opportunity to bump up into the Big 12 championships.
No, I agree with you because Baylor is still undefeated, and I think their upcoming matches, like you said, OU versus Texas, will definitely show up what the top 2 in the Big 12 will shape up to be. As always, it was great having you, Bailey. Thanks for talking football with us. Coming up next, we'll talk men's basketball start to their season and early predictions, so stick around. Welcome back into College Press Box. Basketball season is quickly upon us, and this past Tuesday, Texas men's basketball faced Northern Colorado for their first game of the season. Let's head on over to the Frank Irwin Center as our very own Nick Kuholtz was there to give us the inside scoop on the team's debut.
Last Tuesday, the Texas Longhorns men's basketball team won their season opener against Northern Colorado. The Burnt Orange went up early and wouldn't look back, crushing the Bears 69-45. But despite the 24-point victory, the team was far from pleased with their performance.
We had way too many turnovers, 15. That's not our standard. So there's a lot of room of improvement. You know, if we can limit the turnovers and have more assists and actually hit our shots, I mean, it's just early in the season, so we got a lot of improvement to do.
Last year, the Longhorns won just 16 games in the regular season and failed to make the NCAA tournament for the second time in 3 years.
You know, it's really all about how you respond. And, you know, so that's a word we use a lot in our program. And, you know, we say response is your ability to focus on the next most important thing.
Shaka Smart was just 71-66 in his first 4 seasons here at Texas, and the patience of the UT fan base is running low. If this season brings the same losing results, then some fans are ready for a new head coach to be in this seat.
I think Shaka's definitely underperformed so far while he's been at UT. He definitely needs to perform well this year, and if he doesn't, I think that UT should definitely make a move to hire a better coach.
The Horns are off to an undefeated start to the season, but have a long way to go to meet their fans and their own expectations. Nick Kuholtz, College Press Box.
We now welcome in our men's basketball analyst, Clark Dalton. And Clark, Texas now moves to 2-0 following the road win against number 23 Purdue, thanks to some impressive late-game shooting. So far in this season, what are your takeaways from this start?
The main takeaway from this start is the excitement is back in Frank Irwin Center. This Texas team looks improved greatly, specifically because of the guard play. One thing that's stood out tremendously with the guards is they know how to control the flow of the game. What I mean by that is knowing how to kindle ball movement, but also knowing when it's necessary to attack the basket and get a clutch bucket late in the game.
Yeah, and you bring up some of those players. There have been a lot who have stood out. You look at especially the point guard duo of Matt Coleman, Jace Febres, Courtney Ramey, but we've even seen Andrew Jones come and get some significant minutes and significant points. So far, who would you say are your current standouts on this Texas roster?
3 players currently stand out. Matt Coleman, who's leading the team in scoring with 16.4 points per game, Jace Febres, and Andrew Jones. Matt Coleman was highly recruited coming out of high school, but Texas was sort of waiting for him to have that signature moment. And now you're seeing him in games. He had 22 points against Purdue, had that instinct late in games just to go for it and be aggressive and say, I'm the leader of this team, I'm the point guard, I run everything. And Jace Febres and Andrew Jones are both shooters, but they both bring different aspects of the game to the table, and they can play off of each other. Jace Febres is more of a catch-and-shoot guy who can catch fire at any moment's notice and knock down threes late in games, just like he did against Purdue with 1:23 left, which put Texas up by 2. Andrew Jones has the same shooting ability, but one thing he can do is he can play in transition. He can get rebounds and find guys and get them open with his ball handling ability.
Yeah, you bring up the leadership of Matt Coleman. You look at some of the plays down the stretch against Purdue. They ran the same 3 plays, the same kind of pick and rolls, 3 different pass to 3 different guys. They got the buckets every time. That's a true leader. But let's look at Shaka. We're now into the 5th year of his tenure at Texas, and outside of an NIT title, he doesn't have much to show on his resume other than a couple of NBA draft picks. So, would you say he's on the hot seat? And if so, what can he do to take some heat off of that seat?
The signature basketball question of this network. Is Shaka on the hot seat? Of course he's on the hot seat. The only way he wouldn't be on the hot seat is if he was coming off his 5th national championship in a 40-win season. But there is hope for Shaka this season, because one thing I think that's different with this team is there's a cohesiveness, is they all know their roles. There's not really a one-and-done guy. Like Jackson Hayes last year, it stood out that he's going to play at the next level, but these guys need a little bit more time to develop, so they have to rely on each other. And the essence of a good college basketball team is, it's like Coach Mike Krzyzewski says, the 5 players are fingers, right? Each finger individually is not as strong as when you put it together like a fist. And that's the way this team needs to play throughout the season. And if they can get a couple more signature wins, make the NCAA tournament and get a win, Shaka will start to secure his job just a little bit more.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens down the stretch. I'm sure Texas fans, as well as Shaka Smart and the rest of the team, are hoping that they can come together and get some wins and maybe get some tournament wins. That's what they could certainly use. But Clark, thanks for joining us. When we return, we're going to check in on #1 volleyball as they reach the final stretch before postseason play.
Welcome back into College Press Box. Thanks again for tuning in. This past Saturday was Red River Rivalry Part 2. The Lady Longhorns crossed the border and faced the Sooners in their own home court. Let's take a look at the highlights. First set, Micaiah White attempts the kill with the outside hit, but OU digs it up to stay in the play. Here you see Logan Eggleston, and boom, Micaiah White with the kill. Set 2, Skylar Field attempts on the right side. Nice dig by Hart there. OU goes to the outside with Dunbar, and she swings and kills to get OU into the game. 20-24, set 2. Texas set point. The Longhorns are on the serve-receive side in this play. Nice dig by Peterson. And now to Skylar Fields again. OU digs it up, and ooh, a little miscommunication there. Texas wins set 2. Third set, Dunbar again with the kill. OU ends up beating the Longhorns this set 25-23. However, Texas is still up 2-1. Fourth set, OU is still trying to stay in the game. Shot to the shoulder right there, but hey, anything is up in volleyball. Jenna Gabriel goes to Skylar Fields, and she ends the game right there, 25-13. Texas beats Oklahoma 3-1 in Norman and remains undefeated in Big 12 play.
Now joined on set by our volleyball analyst, Daniel Shih.
How's it going?
Welcome on the show. And Daniel, since the loss to Rice back in September, this team, an unreal set record, 36-2 since that loss, and including a victory, a sweep over then ranked #1 Baylor. So just what makes this team so hard to beat?
36-2, that's a set record, right? And you look at this team that hasn't lost a lot. It's based on a very well-balanced offense and defense combination. They lead the nation in Division I in hitting percentage, and they're 25 points above Missouri, which is quite a bit. And you look at this offense, adding Breon Butler, who put Baylor to sleep whenever she was on the floor against Baylor. That's a huge boost. And then you look at the defensive side. They're ranked 4th among top 10 teams again for opponents' hitting percentage. That's very impressive. And so when you look at the offense and the defense, nationally, they're really good. Now you look at all the teams they played, all the games they played. They dominate in most categories against their opponents. They have 1.8 more kills per set than their opponents, 0.6 less errors, and 1.2 more blocks per set against their opponents. They're just dominating in almost every category, and they don't play down to their opponents. When they play a bad team, they stay at a very high level against really good teams, and that's why it's so hard to beat them.
Yeah, only losing 2 sets so far in conference play. That's pretty hard to beat a team when they're doing that. You look at the rest of the season, 5 games left before you move to postseason play, including a game where they travel up to Waco to play currently ranked #3 Baylor Bears. So what does the team need to focus on looking at the rest of the regular season?
Well, if you look at Texas's last match against Oklahoma, you can say, yeah, they have a lot of things to work on because they lost a set, and they have Baylor coming up. I would argue it was kind of good for Texas to lose a set. They have won 31 straight sets already. You have a Baylor team coming up who, despite Texas sweeping them at home, they're still really, really good. And losing a set kind of allows them to refocus a little bit. And they came back and punched OU in the mouth. They won 25-13 in set 4. And I think that proved a lot to the committee, saying, hey, a little bit of adversity, we're fine. We're going to come back and punch it right in the mouth and win by, 12 points in the next set. They still have 31 service errors more than opponents this season, and that's like the one thing that I would pick on if we really need to adjust something for this team. But look, this season, their services are much more aggressive, and they're getting a lot more aces. If they can be a little bit more consistent behind the service line, this will be a lot better. But again, I said a lot better, but they don't really have that much room above them because they are the #1 team and they've been dominating for so much. So.
Yeah, when you have a team that good, you kind of have to get a little nitpicky because otherwise there's not much else to say. And obviously, very talented team, arguably one of the best we've seen on the 40 acres over the past couple years. But is this a team that can finish the season on top?
Well, the one single biggest factor will be Texas versus Baylor on November 20th. Texas will have to travel to Waco and face the Baylor team, who's ranked #2 by the committee this week. If Texas wins and they win out, they're #1. And so that's out of the question. If they lose, in every scenario we talk about right now will be Texas losing to Baylor, it'll be really hard to put a 1-loss Baylor below a 3-loss Texas team. But Texas needs to stay in the top 4. That's the most important part. Can they be above all the 2-loss teams around the nation? I think they can because of how hard their non-conference schedule is. And listen, if Texas goes out there, dominates the rest of the game, do they get swept by Baylor if they lose, or do they push it to set 5? That's going to be important for the committee because of the eye test. Now, that's all the on-the-court stuff. Off-the-court stuff, because of how the tournament works, if you're a top 4 seed, you go to host a Sweet 16. If both Texas and Baylor are in the top 4, that's geometrically terrible because you have 2 Sweet 16 locations within 2 hours from each other. I don't know if the committee values that because geometrically, as a nation, that doesn't do good for all of the other teams that have to travel all the way to Texas. Does the committee think of that, or do they don't care? They just care about the on-court stuff and put a 1 Sweet 16 at Waco, 1 Sweet 16 at Austin, and then just let the teams play out? I don't know. But if the committee doesn't think of that, it's really Baylor and Texas deserve to be in top 4 seed as of today.
Well, Daniel, top-ranked analysis of the top-ranked team in the nation. Thanks for joining us. When we come back, we're going to hear from both Coach Smart and Coach Herman following a pair of wins against ranked teams over the weekend. For the last time tonight, welcome back into College Press Box. Thanks again for joining us on this brisk Monday evening. Following the road upset over number 23 Purdue, Shaka met with the media to talk about the upcoming schedule.
I thought our guys did a nice job improving from game 1 to game 2, but there's still a ton of areas on the offensive end and the defensive end where we want to get better. The emphasis on our guys is understanding and carrying out the difference between knowing and doing. I think our guys have a really good knowledge and understanding of what to do. Now it's a matter of doing it on a regular basis, on a consistent basis, day in and day out.
Texas's 2-0 start has been impressive, not just because of the play of the team as a whole, but especially the play of point guard Andrew Jones, who has averaged 13 points through the first 2 games. Daniel Shih has more on the significance of his play.
In sports, there are great moments. There are classic moments. And then there are bigger than sports moments. Last Tuesday, Andrew Jones had that moment. In January of 2018, Jones was diagnosed with leukemia after averaging 13 points per game and shooting 52% from the field. Jones would only play in 2 more games after the diagnosis and stayed off the court for most of the 2018-2019 season. Last Tuesday, after months of anticipation, Andrew Jones returns to court to play significant minutes. And boy, were they significant. Jones shot 61% from the field, 4 for 5 from beyond the arc against Northern Colorado, and contributed 20 points to Texas's season opening win. Later that night, even Barstool A&M said it was a cool moment on Twitter. Last Friday, against number 22 Purdue, Jones hit 6 free throws to ice the game in the final seconds to help Texas earn an impressive win over a ranked opponent. Character is not defined by how one knocks down another. It's defined by how one gets back up. Andrew Jones not only got back up, he got back up and punched cancer in the mouth. This is a story that's bigger than you and me. It's a story that's bigger than the University of Texas. It's a story that's bigger than sports. It's a story about a way of living, the persistence of staying in the fight and winning a fight. It's a story of inspiration for every one of us during our difficult times. Andrew, from everyone at TSTV Sports, congratulations for finishing your fight and congratulations for finding a path back on the basketball court. And finally, thank you for being a source of inspiration for every last one of us. We can't wait to see what you will offer on the court, and we wish you the best of luck this season. Let's toss it back to Jocelyn.
Thanks, Daniel. That tribute to Andrew Jones was amazing. This afternoon, Coach Herman held his weekly press conference. He discussed this weekend's game against Kansas State and the future game against Iowa State.
So, you're not going to change anything in the middle of a season from a schematic standpoint, from a philosophical standpoint. This is who we are. This is what we believe in. We're going to try our best within the framework of the system to put you in situations to be successful. We got to coach you better, and you guys got to buy in and trust it.
This Sunday, Texas men's tennis senior Yuya Ito won the singles title at the 2019 Oracle ITA Fall National Championships in Newport Beach, California. Ito became the first Longhorn to win the tournament singles title. This also marked Ito's second national singles title of the fall.
The Tarati twins are at it again. This past week, women's tennis competed in the Oracle ITA National Fall Championship in Newport Beach. Bianca Tarati won the ITF Malibu 25K singles title, and twin sister Anna Tarati took second in the singles championship match. The Longhorns have a break before they compete next in the Bahamian Invite in Nassau.
This past weekend, men's and women's swimming and diving both competed in Bloomington, Indiana, in a short course yard tri-meet. The number 2 Texas men's swimming and diving team and the number 8 women's swimming and diving team both took down Louisville and Indiana, going 2-0 at this tri-meet. The diving crew will be on the slate next as the Longhorns will host the Texas Diving Invitational over November 21st through 23rd.
There was more excitement for the football team this weekend as wide receivers Devin Duvernay and Colin Johnson, as well as safety Brandon Jones, accepted invitations to compete in the 2020 Reese's Senior Bowl. All three are serving as captains for the Longhorns this season and are promising prospects for the NFL Draft in April.
This past weekend, Texas Athletics announced that their new basketball and events arena will be named the Moody Center. The Moody Foundation graciously donated $130 million, being one of the largest gifts ever made to any university for a new arena. A groundbreaking ceremony will be held for the Moody Center on December 3rd at the projected site. The Moody Center is expected to open in 2022.
This afternoon, Texas soccer received a bid for the NCAA tournament where they'll be facing off in the first round against Texas A&M in College Station on Friday night.
This week in Texas sports, men's basketball goes up against California Baptist tomorrow at the Frank Irwin Center at 7 p.m. You can watch that game on ESPN's Longhorn Network. Volleyball plays Kansas State Wednesday night at 7, also on ESPN's Longhorn Network. And men's basketball takes the court again on Friday at 7 against Prairie View A&M on Longhorn Network. Texas football heads to Ames, Iowa this Saturday to play against Iowa State. That game is at 2:30 and you can watch it on FS1. Later that evening, Texas volleyball plays the second time this week against TCU at home at 7, also on ESPN's Longhorn Network.
Lastly, it's TSTV's 25th anniversary, and unfortunately, that gives you a good idea of the age of our equipment as well. If you'd like to donate, follow our social medias at TSTV Sports or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as well, and look out for the Hornraiser link on those social media pages to give some money and help support student voices.
All right, well, that's all for today, guys. Thomas, it was a pleasure hosting with you. On Wednesday nights, make sure to tune in to our sister show, College Crossfire, hosted by Turner Barnes, for a great insight to the flavorful opinions prevalent in the sports world. And on Friday mornings, tune into our morning talk show, 1-0 Sports, hosted by the man himself, Thomas Fitch, and Robert Trevino. I'm Jocelyn Maldonado, joined by Thomas Fitch. Thanks for watching College Press Box.